You've got another awesome song idea that you're really excited about. You finish the lyrics, the song structure, the chords, and then you go into the studio to record it. And then, after spending a lot of time mixing it, you realize it's just not sounding the way you want it to. It's just not good enough. And if we're honest, it's not even close. Maybe your doubts about your music start to kick into high gear. It's another song that won't come out because it's just not there. And then you start to wonder, why can't I get it there? Why does all this stuff sound so unprofessional? No amount of mixing videos on YouTube are going to save you from this, because your problem is likely way before you get into mixing and before you even record anything. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 things that are essential to a pro-level sounding song that you need to do before you hit record. Way too many bands and artists trying to come up right now don't do these things. So if you apply this to your music is going to stand out above the rest and have a huge leg up on a swath of other artists right now. This video is for people that are serious about making pro-level music, not the weak and lazy that are going to give up easily. My name is Brandon with Megatonic Audio. Let's get into it. So, number 1, the first thing I want to talk about is, what's your setup? What gear do you have to record the song? And I don't just mean your microphone. What is the preamp you're going through? What guitars are you using? Acoustic, electric? What's the quality of them? What kind of sound are you going for? You need to really plan all that stuff out, and you need to think about that before you record. You need to think about, okay, this is the equipment I have access to. A lot of people watching this channel probably don't have access to Blackbird, right? It's the mecca of the recording world. It's, if you're a recording musician, you want to at least record there once. They have everything. They have things that no one else has. I mean, I just can't get into how much gear and microphones they have, and the facilities are immaculate. You just look it up if you haven't heard of it. The Blackbird Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. But you don't have all that stuff. Most people watching this probably don't have at least any high-end gear, or at least you don't have a lot of it. Maybe you have that one microphone that's really good, but that's not going to do you any good if you're in a band and you just really pride yourself on recording live. Okay, well, what are the other mics going to be if you only have the one high end? Is it all 57s? Which is fine if you know how to make that work. You got to know your gear that you have access to. Maybe that is just a bunch of, some 57s, a 421, and an RE20 like this one. You just got to know that before you record the song. Just get real with what you have access to. Maybe a friend can lend you something. Maybe you can rent something from somewhere. But maybe you can't. Oftentimes you can't. You only have what you have. And you don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars of getting the ideal equipment. Because when you know your equipment, when you know what you have, not just, I know my arsenal. Know it backwards and forwards. Know how your frequency response is on each microphone so that you can listen with your ear to what you're going to be playing into your microphones. And no, actually, let's switch that one out for this microphone. This one would be better because this instrument has kind of a peak in this frequency range, and this microphone also has a peak, so I don't want to use that to make it too pointy. You know what I mean? Too annoying in that frequency range. So I want to even it out. So I'm going to use one that is a little more deficient in that frequency range, right? You want to make intentional decisions with your gear before you record. And if you really don't have much of a decision to make, it's like, this is all I have. That's where you need to get into. Well, I have another video on this, about I actually don't remember which video it is, but I'll find it and link it up here or in the description for you to listen to. How to use microphones for it was how to get better recordings. That's what it was. And in there, one of the points I talk about is mic placement. That is essential if you don't have much of a choice at all in how many mics you have or what mics you're going to use. Like, let's say all you do have is a couple of 57 with your, Scarlett Focusrite interface, right? You need to figure out, okay, well, this is what I got. Where is the most strategic placement on this instrument or on this amplifier to get the most I can out of this microphone? When you do that, you're in the big leagues. As far as so many people don't do that with, they buy a bunch of gear and they don't get good at that. And then the high-end gear that they do have options to use doesn't end up benefiting them all that much. And either they're puzzled, wondering why it doesn't sound good, or they don't have the ears to hear that it doesn't sound good. So there's something to think about. But yeah, be intentional about the gear that you have and how you use it. Know your gear, know how you can use all the different applications. And this takes a lot of experimentation. So before you even record, plan all that out. If you do that, your recordings are going to sound great and is going to make every stage of the process easier after that. Now, the second thing you need to think about is your arrangement. So pretty much, back in the day, arrangers were key to all music, all recorded music. Recording artists relied a lot on arrangers to do a lot of the heavy lifting on really making every part of their song sing, shine, all that jazz, and fit together right. There's the relationship between different instruments playing things at the same time or at different times, trading off, whatever. And a lot of that has a lot to do with how the song ends up sounding in the mix, in the final recording, in the master. Like I just said, if you plan everything out before you record with your gear, it's going to make the recording sound better, which makes the mix sound better, which makes the master sound better. This is the same thing. This step also increases your chance of having a really polished, nice song. Getting your arrangement is also essential on top of that to getting a great sounding song in the end product, in the end stage, the final master. And if you don't know what arrangements are, like what an arranger does, it's really just figuring out what instrument is playing what at what time. Yep, that's it. What instrument is doing what. That sounds really straightforward and easy. And it's not that hard, or at least it's not that hard with genres you're comfortable with. There's always more to learn. There's always more tricks, and there's ways to arrange stuff with different instruments playing at different times to make it more facilitating the emotion better that you're going for, really hit home in the feels, if you will. But if you know your genre, you could probably figure that stuff out intuitively, it seems. But there's a lot of times that you will run into problems with your arrangement. It usually comes with the price of a really cluttered, muddy song. A lot of people want to put too much going on into their songs, and a lot of it happens in the same registers at the same time, and it muddies the sound. Whether that be in the mud range, the low mids that make everything sound muddy, but it can also get really cluttered on up the spectrum too. So, that's when it starts to sound harsh or just a little too overstimulating. There's too much, and it gets noisy, even just noisy. So think of what you're arranging. Think of the music that you're putting together behind the lyrics and melody, the instruments that are playing, what's going to play where, and make sure there's not too much overlapping. You can overlap things and it can bring things together. It can be a glue, so to speak, but there is such thing as too much, and a lot of the time that's what people are doing. For instance, when you're mixing, let's say you're mixing just a piano and a vocal song, right? There's just piano and vocal. You will find that even in just the piano and vocal, if they overlap in range, there will be notes that will mask the vocal that you never want to mask, right? You want to complement, you want to facilitate, you want to be tucked right up underneath it to, bolster it and everything, but you don't want to mask it. And that's what happens because there are overlapping frequencies that also build up on one another, and it can just get really cluttered quickly the more instruments you add, because even with just two instruments, a vocal and a piano, you can see mixing. I'm sure a lot of you have gone through that, where there are some notes that just kind of poke over the vocal, and you have to EQ that out a little bit. And as you can imagine, after that example, well, adding a lot of instruments can create a lot of problems, right? So be careful with what you add, what's playing what, where, in what register, what instrument at the same time as something else, right? Just keep that in mind. And if you get that right on paper and in practice while you're, rehearsing the song, that is going to make everything sound a lot better. Everything is going to sound amazing. But yeah, you gotta practice that beforehand. And speaking of practice, number 3 is practice. As soon as you have written your song, you know what it's gonna be, you need to practice this. So if you're in a band, practice it together. Whether you plan on playing this live, like a live recording in the studio, or live in front of people at shows, you've got to practice. One of the things that separate the really good bands from mediocre bands or bad ones today is the same thing that separates a lot of bands, like the majority of bands, even some that we think are good, from how good bands were back in the day, in the tape days when you had to record the tape. It was rehearsal. They rehearsed so much. Here's an example. Butch Vig has said on multiple occasions how many times Nirvana practiced all the songs that were on Nevermind, and some that didn't make it on the album, before they recorded it. They practiced, I think he said, for 6 months, nearly every single day. Now, that doesn't mean that they went over every single song every single day for all day. But come on, that's a lot of repetition. For 6 months, almost every single day, you practice your songs. If you do that, that is what makes you better as a band. Even when you try out a song for the first time, you're going to be better then than you ever would have been if you didn't practice together that much, right? When you practice that much, that makes you a more cohesive band. The bass and drums lock in way better naturally. And when you do it naturally, it sounds way better than when you edit it to sound, technically correct, like gritting it, basically. If you can get your band sound to be cohesive, that makes a world of difference. And even to the untrained ear, like regular people listening on the street, they'll notice that something's better about this band versus that band when that band's been edited to the grid playing the same song and this band isn't. They're just really good together. There's something that happens, especially when you see it live. It's like, man, it makes all the difference in a live show when they can be rushing a little bit, they can be speeding up, and it won't matter. Their cohesion, their feel is awesome, and it makes all the difference. And that's just, drums and bass. Guitars can be a little out of that, but not really. You want to be cohesive too, and you got your guitars just meshing in with them. Another grunge band, grunge and rock, Smashing Pumpkins. People talk about that. Butch Vig again, talking about that push-pull that Billy, who's guitar and vocals, would push and pull with Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer, in tempo, and they would... It just sounded so cohesive, and there's just a good chemistry there. Makes all the difference. Not to mention the vocal. If you practice your vocal every day, how many takes is it going to take to get it right? You're not going to be sitting there. You might get a little bit of red light fever, as they say, when the recording light goes on and you're a little nervous at first, but just get that out of your system, and then your takes you're just gonna be nailing your takes, and then you can do kind of different versions based on what your producer is like. Hey, try it like this, just to have different ideas that you didn't have before, and you'll be able to do them easier than if you're still trying to just get one good take that is going to be good enough for the final song for your vocal. If it's too hard to do that, you need to practice more. But if you guys practice more, and not even just bands that record live in the studio together, even if you're going to record separately. That's okay too. But if you record separately, this does not negate you. This applies to you. You need to practice your songs. You need to nail your songs. You need to be comfortable with your songs to give it different attitudes and different takes if the need arises. If somebody's in the room, say your producer or something, that was like, hey, actually, why don't you try doing it this way? You need to be comfortable with your songs, playing them backwards and forwards, because the biggest thing with that is that when you do hit record, you're going to be able to perform the song, not think about, okay, this part comes next and this part. You're just going to be able to flow through it, and it is going to make, like I said about all the other stuff, all the difference. Guys, if you put all of this together, it sounds so boring. But like I said, this video wasn't for the lazy and weak that are going to give up easily and not apply things because they're not serious about making a pro-level song. This is what it takes to make a pro-level song. It's before you record. You got to do all three of these things. They are essential. If you do this, like I said at the beginning, you will have a huge leg up on most other artists trying to come up right now. I know people panic about how many artists there are posting to Spotify a day. Well, how many of them are you just going to knock out of the water if you do this? That's what bands had to do to record the tape back in the day. They had to get good at practicing and playing well as a band together to sound as good as they did in the studio once they hit record. And when they did that, before they hit record, they were intentional about the mics they were using, because they didn't have all the technology that we have today to do a whole lot of surgical stuff after the fact in Pro Tools or Logic, Cubase, Luna, whatever you're using. They had to get it right up front mostly, so they had to be intentional about the stuff they use. Now we don't, and we're suffering for it because we're kind of a victim of our luxuries. It's taken out the zeal to do the hard work on the front end, which takes off some of that shine. You think, oh, I'll fix it in the mix, and it never sounds as good anymore when you do it that way. But if you go back to the basics, get your gear planned out, practice hard, get your arrangement right. Your mix, don't worry about your mix. It's going to be fine. Your mix is going to be fine. A lot of times you'll surprise yourself and be like, man, it sounds so good, just dry recordings from the studio session. It'll surprise you once you start doing this. And then mixing is also more free. You can do whatever you want or nothing at all. Like Eric Valentine doing, I don't know if you saw I've seen the video before it got taken down off of YouTube. For I don't know what reasons it got taken down, but Eric Valentine had posted what they did recording No One Knows on the album Songs for the Deaf. And then he A-B'd the final mix, the mix that you hear today, versus his static mix, just the recorded tracks just brought to level, because they did everything I said in this video, everything. And he talks about that with a lot of his bands. And it sounded almost exactly the same, because the mixing engineer, which wasn't Eric Valentine for that, didn't have to do anything really, because it was already good. Imagine that for your stuff. You can do it. You can do it. I know you can. Just apply this stuff. It just takes time. It takes effort. It takes zeal. And you just got to do some of these things even when you don't want to. Push through and do it. Your song is going to thank you. Your listeners will thank you. You'll thank you. You will feel better that you did it after you go through it all. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you hit the like button for me, that would be great. That helps me get this video out to more people like you. And if you like the content, let me know below. Comment about what your thoughts are on this video, if you've seen results doing these things that I'm talking about, or if you have any other questions. I'd love to talk with you about any of that. And also, please subscribe to the channel. That will help me grow as a YouTube channel. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get to more people like you to talk about topics like this, and that will greatly help me, and I will appreciate it. But anyways, I'm excited to see what you guys do with all this. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next video. All right, y'all be good.